So Savannah made a big purchase.
I
in her
did.
life.
I
Can you
recently
tell us?
moved into a new apartment, so I'm decorating. And I bought this poster from this website. I have been seeing Instagram ads for this website for like 3 years. I keep seeing it in my Instagram ads.
There you go.
So last year, when I knew I was probably going to live on my own this year, I went and followed them. And then here I am today.
Big step in the relationship.
The next step in the relationship. And then here I am today. I finally made the purchase 3.5 years later since I saw the first initial Instagram post or ad. It was an Instagram ad.
I was telling you guys the other day about the fact that I just bought shorts.
Yep.
Big day for me. I bought some shorts from a company that I followed for probably 2 years.
Yeah.
Same deal. I followed them, probably saved the same ad 5 different times.
Oh, yeah.
And thought to myself, I don't want to spend money on that yet, but I'll need shorts in the future. And I don't want to spend, like $100 on a pair of Lululemon shorts. So
Yeah.
this is an alternative. It looks pretty good. Maybe I'll try it out. Finally, last week, I was like, I need new shorts to work out in for the summer.
So you got them.
I went back and I knew exactly what company I wanted.
You've been
and it was
eyeing them.
And I've been eyeing them. But it literally took me probably 2 years, 2.5 years or something like that since I came into contact with that brand. Followed them on Instagram, saved a few of their ads, checked out their website, probably opened a few. I'm on their text list. It's a big deal.
See, I'm the
So
same
we're
thing.
pretty far along. Big steps in the relationship there. But I finally pulled the trigger and did the same thing. I was like, it's time. It's like, it's time.
This relationship that we're referring to is what we're going to be talking about today.
We are. It's got a scary name, though. According to LinkedIn and all the hot industry blogs.
Sounds intimidating.
It
is
does.
The dark funnel.
Very scary. Very intimidating.
It almost sounds like we fell victims to the dark funnel. That makes it sound even more scary, but it's not.
It's going to suck you into the space-time continuum.
It's not. I promise you it's not that scary.
Okay, it's not.
But let's talk about it.
Let's do it. So, the dark funnel. First of all, we got to get from Rich. Rich is more of a... Rich is a dive in and go type
You
guy,
see
right?
it, you buy it, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
For your buying decision.
Yeah, I make choices before I buy it. I've researched a little bit what I want, but I don't do too much. But when I'm ready to go, I'm ready. I do it.
So Rich probably is
sense.
not in the dark funnel. He's on top of the iceberg for sure.
Yeah, there you everything Rich does, every step Rich takes is tracked.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Savannah and I are the opposite.
If I let them track me.
There you go.
I know what's happening. And
Rich just only exclusively searches on DuckDuckGo. Okay, so the dark funnel, it seems to be a hot topic these days, but it's for good reason, right? It's sort of I saw somebody on LinkedIn described it as the elephant in the room is the buyer's journey, the current state of the B2B buyer's journey. And what we were just kind of talking about before off air was the fact that people forget that we're just people, right? You're marketing and you're selling to individual human beings, and we all have the same buying pattern when it comes right down to it. So if these are the ways that we're buying in from B2C, like if we're making purchases in this way and buying decisions that take 2.5, 3 years for a poster or a pair of shorts, how long is that going to take when there are more people involved, when there's more complex buying decisions to be made? The prices are a lot higher, the budgets are a lot bigger, there's more people involved. So there's a lot of change happening in that B2B buyer's journey, and the dark funnel is really just a reflection of that.
Yeah.
So just to give a quick explanation of that for anybody who's not up to speed, but the dark funnel is essentially the pieces of your buyer's journey that we don't have the ability to track in our marketing automation platforms.
Let's talk about, and I think we have a really great graphic that kind of shows it. If we talk about the top of the iceberg, what we can track, that's going to be paid social, that's going to be paid search, the Instagram ads,
email marketing,
exactly,
to an extent, referral traffic, those sorts of things that we can put. We can put some sort of tracking to and attribute those purchases back to those specific points along the buyer's journey or the consideration.
And
journey.
all of those are kind of the start of your journey into the dark funnel. So you kind of start at one of those. And then the things that we would consider the dark funnel are...
Well, so it can actually... The dark funnel is really just a mixture, right? So the dark funnel is specifically referencing those elements in the buyer's journey that are untraceable, right? That are more qualitative versus quantitative. Whereas the things that are above the surface that we would consider above the surface and are trackable are the elements of the journey that are somewhat visible, throughout that journey. So we have this graphic from Strategic ABM that I think illustrates the dark funnel pretty nicely because it uses the analogy of an iceberg, right? So tip of the iceberg and then under the surface. The dark funnel is referring specifically to those elements of the buyer's journey that are under the surface. We can't track directly, right? So messaging apps, word of mouth, personal email and text.
Events, moving into a new apartment.
There you go.
Old shorts shrinking up in the dryer.
Yep.
They don't know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Review sites are another big one that gets overlooked, especially in B2B. Think about all of the sites out there reviewing software in particular.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know right now as somebody in his position, if I were to purchase new software for our company, I'm not purchasing that without reading reviews.
They're going to go to G2 or they're going to
I'm going to reach out to my friends in the industry, see what they think.
Yep.
Word of mouth.
100%. I mean, and then obviously the biggest one is the dark social element of all of this where, there's content being posted from a specific company that you're engaging with that you might not ever buy from or you might buy from in 2 years, whatever it may be. But you're going to have those brand impressions created by, the content that they're putting out, and your idea of that brand is going to be developed through that. And that may or may not be trackable because you may or may not engage with those pieces of content. But what's not trackable is the impact, right? The impact that those things are having on you along the way. There's just so many elements that are there that we can't see necessarily without asking at the end of the buyer's journey, hey, where did you hear about us?
Yeah.
Where did you first see? What were you struggling with when you first found us?
What influenced your decision?
Yeah, exactly. What influenced your decision along the way? Those qualitative questions that are open-ended that people can speak to. So it really it is essentially describing those types of things. And there's a lot of ways we can approach dealing with the dark funnel, but I think the first step, honestly, for most B2B marketers is accepting it.
Yeah, that
as with anything that's challenging, is accepting that it exists and then opening the door to asking those qualitative questions and being okay with the fact that you can't necessarily quantify them.
Yeah, and being okay with the fact that sometimes it's going to take 3 years for somebody to make that purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. And investing in the long game and really
investing. I think that's the biggest thing here.
Yeah, 100%. And I think with digital digital platforms are at a point where things are really shifting to that long game approach where, digital marketing used to be so focused. And we talked about this kind of a little bit in the last episode, but digital marketing used to have such a focus on direct response and creating.
Because it was something, we're so used to the old school way, like we talked about in the last episode, that it was so instant, but now we've adjusted, I think, to digital marketing. So what does it look like now that we've adjusted and we're used to it?
Right, exactly. Being okay with using digital as a channel for awareness marketing, essentially, right? And playing the long game. Diversifying your marketing portfolio is a good way to put it because you're saying, I'm going to invest a little bit in awareness. I'm going to invest in a little bit in sort of being personable.
Influencers. When brands play influencers and you see your favorite influencer using something, you might not buy it right away, but then later you see that.
Oh my gosh.
And you're like, Kennedy uses this. I'm going to buy this.
Yeah, and there's actually two elements to that. There is a trackable element, but there's obviously an untrackable element because you can't gauge impact.
Unless they swipe up on that influencer story right then and there. Exactly. And they're rich and they're an instant buy.
Something is going to push you over the edge. And the idea is that you have your lines at a lot of different ponds.
Yep.
Whatever cliche we want to say to explain that.
It's
because you did 5 things 2 years ago, that will have some kind of an effect on that purchasing decision for that person. Because all you need to do is get that recall.
It's the whole right person, right off the right time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all the stars align.
I guess the question here is, as B2B, how do we approach this, knowing that we have this information?
I think we kind of have to start diversifying our marketing portfolio, or however you want to describe it. But basically, we have to start thinking about not only things that we can track, but think about the things that we can't track and incorporating those back into our broader campaigns. And some of the things we've boiled it down into 3 ways or so that we can start leveraging the dark funnel.
Not putting all of our marketing eggs into one marketing basket.
Yeah, and I think for a long time, especially with digital, everything was treated as being linear.
Yeah, you put an ad up, you can track almost instantly who's looking at that.
Right. And the way that you look at that is say, was this a successful ad or not, which is somewhat fair, but you have to look at the long tail impact of these different elements at play. So that's kind of where the dark funnel comes in and affects things, and in a way, is the wrench in that traditional thinking, right? So the first way that we can leverage the dark funnel and shift our mindset is by just embracing connection, being a connector, things that cause connection but might not scale long term, right? So one-on-one conversations, direct mail and gifting, in-person events and experiences. We can't necessarily measure the impact that those may have in the long term.
But we know that there is an impact.
But we know, right,
Absolutely.
exactly. And so they're worth investing in. And especially when we know that's the biggest impression we can make, right, is creating a personal connection with somebody or becoming a little bit more vulnerable in our content or something like that. It opens the door to that sort of actual connection that you can create with a potential client.
And you and I were talking about this earlier, is when I was studying marketing in college, I feel like word of mouth was a huge medium that people talked about a lot.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
now I feel like as we've shifted into this digital age, people forget about how important word of mouth really is, especially when we're talking about these things like one-on-one conversations and events. I think that has a bigger impact than I think we put weight into a lot these days.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that kind of way, it leads us right into the second. The second way is really playing the long game, especially from the content standpoint, and creating content that is building authority, but also gives your brand a voice that long term can give people the chance to build an affinity with you, right? Because you don't ever know, like we just talked about, there's no measure on how long it might take for somebody to make a buying decision that may be really big for their organization, but it might not be the right time. It might not be the right offer at that moment for them, but 2 years from now, it very well could be. And they're going to remember all of those other touches along the way, right? They're going to be reminded of the fact that you're there and you're the one that if they ever need XYZ, they will have that brand affinity for you for sure. And that's just the way we've been conditioned from a B2C buying environment, right? And so that's going to translate to B2B because we're all just individuals and human beings. So
at the end of the day.
Yeah, there you go. And it leads us into buying a bidet, for example.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if you think about it, most of the purchases are being done on a toilet seat. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
right?
There you go.
I mean, to your point, we all are the same people. We're all people, right? We all take our phone into the bathroom. We all surf and research. So this is the most perfect place to do it. And during the pandemic, when we had the toilet paper shortage, that was the thing that pushed me over the edge. Say, I think an event, right? That I actually do want to get one of these bidet seats, and they're amazing. Right. And I highly recommend you all get one.
Now, Rich's team bidet.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. And Rich, you made a good point earlier that we don't ever know what will be the trigger that pushes somebody over the edge. So you have to keep putting lines in the water, right? You don't know what lure they're going to take.
The way I look at it is people are inherently lazy. And that's not a negative. That's just the way it is. People are inherently lazy. And we are at a point in our history where there is more information at people's fingertips than ever before to do vast research on a particular product or a business or a company or anything. And people will do the path of least resistance.
Right.
And if something is triggered in their mind, a word of mouth or some kind of recall about a product like a bidet that they saw 2 years ago, that will be all they need to do is to make that final decision. And to your point, putting as many lures out there, eventually someone's going to bite. Right. And that's when you need to reel it in. And you don't have to know where it came from. You just know that you had the reel out there to get it.
Right. So. Yeah, no, for sure. And so the third element to this is really reconsidering your attribution model and minding that gap that we know is there that the dark funnel represents. Just asking those big questions about, are there gaps in your marketing and your attribution? Dark social can explain. The dark funnel can explain, right? Are you sacrificing quantitative measurements for qualitative, asking the right questions of clients or customers when they do buy from you and become a customer? Asking those questions like, hey, where did you find out about us? Was the problem that you were looking to solve originally? What was, asking them what their buyer's journey was like. People will absolutely tell you, especially if it's a crazy story like we were just talking about where, hey, I heard your founder on a podcast 3 years ago and I liked the sound of his voice. So I remembered you guys down the line when I needed something.
Influencers is a big one too. When brands pay influencers, yes, you can track that if you use a code or you swipe up on their link. But what about when you're in the store a year from now and you see something, you're like, oh, that's the brand that so-and-so really likes to use. You know what? I'm going to use that.
Yeah,
that's the
no
untrackable part of it.
Yeah, there's a trackable element to that, but there's also an impact element that may not be trackable. It may be somebody seeing that and engaging with that post, not actually buying, but a year later, 2 years later, whatever it is, they'll buy from you, but it might not be using that referral link. So you'll never know that was attributed to that person without having a conversation with them, asking them what their buyer's journey was like, that sort of thing. So doing those, that comes back kind of full circle to being a connector and in investing in those things that don't scale necessarily, but they give you a depth and context that is invaluable to your marketing efforts long term. That's a trip down the dark funnel. It's not that scary.
It sounds scary. It's buzzed everywhere, but I think it's pretty simple when you break it down.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's very buzzy. This very complex topic of the dark funnel. But anyways, so hopefully you're just taking the qualitative and the quantitative approach rather than just, being a numbers jockey from now on, because there's an art to all of this, right?
Marketing is a blend of art and science.
It's true. It's as much as everyone wants to make it just a strict science.
It's a blend of art and science.
It is a blend of art.